Hi guys, welcome to The Racing Line. My name is Dark Chocolate, and today we have Hayden Gullis as my co-host. This is the show where we talk about everything from Formula 1 to Formula 1 gaming, and we have an exclusive interview with one of the game designers, Sam Thompson from Codemasters. We're going to talk about the mid-season review in F1 and some insights of what's to come and what has happened so far in the last couple of weeks. And also, we're going to look at the standouts from the pre-season of F1 Esports, who we think is going to absolutely perform in the upcoming season.
Now on to Race Reactions, the part of the show where we discuss real-life Formula 1. You may be wondering, where our other co-host, Tom, is? Well, he's not with us because he was actually at the Hungarian Grand Prix. So let's head over to him and see what he got up to at the track.
I was invited by Alpine in the paddock of the Formula 1 Grand Prix in Hungary. I touched the car in the pit lane, don't tell anyone. Took a picture with Alonso and his race helmet. And then after that he decided he has seen enough. He had seen enough. He was like, I met Tom, it's over. I will go somewhere else. Hayden's prediction that I was gonna get wet came through.
I regret life. What's going on here?
Now, I had access to the Alpine hospitality, from which there were some super unique items from the team, actually, which you can see right now, as well as a simulator with F1 22. How fitting. I spent way too much time playing the game, by the way.
Hello everyone, we're in the paddock today on the Saturday, and actually, as you can see behind me, it's actually raining right now. So, let's see, we're gonna have the qualifying later on today, and if it's gonna be raining, and actually there was some lighting as well, then we might not even see a qualifying today. So let's see, I'm really looking forward to it, and I'll keep you guys up to date in a little bit as well. See you later.
The Hungary Grand Prix was a special one, because the Hungary Grand Prix is not normally necessarily a Grand Prix that delivers in terms of racing on the track, but this one was different. From qualifying to the race, with qualifying being a big surprise, and the race of course being a big surprise as well.
So qualifying just finished. You can see behind me the interview pen with Russell on pole position, which I didn't expect whatsoever. On the Alpine side, on my side, of course, because I'm in paddock with Alpine, Alonso and Ocon P5, P6, absolutely sublime.
Alpine actually had a little bit of a coming together with Alonso as well as Ocon going super close to each other. Now from the balcony watching the track, very quickly in the race we saw that Russell couldn't really build a gap on those soft tires compared to the medium runners, and already seeing that Ferrari had a very good pace. At some point in the race we had that Verstappen spin, a 360, and of course in the end he flipping won the race. Absolutely unbelievable. Now Charles Leclerc, of course, decided to go into the hard strategy after Alpine actually went onto the hard tires, and everybody saw it didn't really work because the tires were super cold. It was raining all the way throughout the race actually. Going outside you could feel the drips on your skin, so it wasn't really the perfect temperature for the tires. Now the question I have for you is, could Leclerc have won if he didn't go for the hard tires? Let me know in the comments, I would love to know what you think. And probably my driver of the day if Verstappen didn't do that insane race winning with a 360. Those were the reactions from Hungary though. Let's head over to the pit lane.
So I was right, Tom did indeed get wet at the Hungarian Grand Prix. Now on to mine and Dirk's mid-season review. I've actually been pleasantly surprised with how the racing has gone this season. I think the 2022 regulations have worked an absolute treat. I think we've seen some really great races this season. The team that I think has probably surprised me the most, I mean, there's only one team that we can say, Haas, going from the bottom team last year, absolutely nowhere, and then rocking up first race in Bahrain, P5. It's been up and down over the course of the season, but they've still remained very much in that midfield fight, which I think for a lot of fans is good to see, that there's no team really struggling at the back and that every team can kind of get involved for those fight for points. Dirk, who surprised you the most?
Well, obviously the standout is Haas this year. They've done absolutely brilliantly, but I am going to give a shout out to Ferrari. I think the fact that they've gone from fighting at the top of the mid-grid to now fighting for the World Championship Constructors, and the Constructors shows a credit on how much work they've actually put in. Also, in terms of drivers, Carlos Sainz for me has really gone leaps and bounds this year. Last year he was quality, but this year I think he started a bit rough, and he's really starting to shine, as we saw in Silverstone.
The Ferrari fanboy inside of you just slowly coming out. What was that? Ferrari as team driver? Damn, boy. There's so many good shouts. I think Joe's within a shout, but I think even Bottas as well. But I think George Russell. I think a lot of people were expecting Lewis Hamilton to wipe the floor with him. And he didn't really necessarily have a teammate who was a standout that he could perform against and be quite close. Everyone was like, he's miles clear of Latifi, but, that's not really someone you can go up against. So it's good to see now that there is some really good talent in that Mercedes team. He's gone up against Lewis Hamilton. He's beat him. I think it's 7-6 to George Russell in the qualifying between the two. And I think it's just as close in the races. Both drivers fighting for podiums, fighting for some good points now. I've also got to say, Max Verstappen has been absolutely unstoppable this season. Only really making one or two mistakes. The spin in Hungary, which he got away with, overtook Leclerc pretty much straight away. And then there was that time that he went off the track in Spain, but I'm pretty sure he still won that race as well. There's still half the season left to go. We're excited for Belgium, which is going to be next. Predictions for Belgium. Any that you've got? I'm going to be there, so I'm hoping it's not going to be as wet as Hungary was, and I don't get wet.
Well, I'm hoping it actually rains and we get to race this year, because that made for a really interesting race, because George and Lando were absolutely outstanding when it was wet. Of course, Lando did make that mistake where he crashed up into Radion, but it's really hard to predict because a lot of teams are going to make some changes. I think we're going to see Lewis probably shine in that one.
Okay. That'd be exciting. I mean, I wouldn't mind that, being at the track and seeing Lewis Hamilton win. For me, prediction, I think Ferrari are going to come back on this one. I think they're going to use that summer break just to reset, and I think that they're going to get on top of things, and it will be Leclerc on the top.
We'll see. Well, let us know what you guys think is going to happen next GP. Let us know what your standouts are as well. I'd love to know what your predictions are. Maybe the top 3. Tell us your top 3 for the Grand Prix in Belgium. Welcome to the pit lane, guys. As you recall, last time I got really lucky and I got to interview Matt Skingle from Codemasters, who gave us some insight on the patches and what's to come in the game. This time I've got Sam Thompson, one of the game designers who I got to interview. I hope you really like what we discussed. This week we have Sam Thompson joining us from Codemasters. So, Sam, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yep, I am Sam Thompson. I'm an experienced game designer on F1 22 and work at Codemasters.
Lovely to have you, Sam. And the first question I'll dive into is one that was asked quite a lot about the AI, and I know that this upcoming patch and the patch previously has addressed this. So can you give us a bit more information about the upcoming patch?
Yep, so the AI issues were addressed in patch 1.08. So we discovered that in career saves, upgrades that were being applied to AI cars ended up being a bit too powerful. So in almost all instances, AI would end up having a bit too much speed in comparison to the player. Yeah. So that has now been rectified. So, coming out of slow corners and going down straights, the AI should now be much more comparable. It'll probably feel like a decrease in difficulty of about 5 on our AI difficulty slider. So people need to probably be prepared to up it a little bit if they've made an adjustment.
We had to decrease it by 5 from whatever you used to play at. So I used to be at 90 and now I'm at 85. Fantastic to hear about the new AI patches there and how that's progressing. It's definitely feeling more refined from someone that's been playing a bit too much recently. The next question, and one that we talked about and you teased last time as well from Matthew, was crossplay, and I know that it was just released yesterday, which I am very eager to jump on and play with a load of people from my community. I know that everyone has been asking for 2 years, and we finally have crossplay enabled. What can you tell us about where you're at with it at the moment?
Yep, so it will have released just yesterday alongside Series 2 of the Podium Pass. So players will now be able to find social play lobbies from any platform, depending on the host that created it. They'll also be able to add friends from other platforms. We have an in-game friends list where this can be done. And then those friends will surface on the friends list when you're inviting, so you can invite people into a 2-player career save from other platforms as well. So yeah, it's been a long time coming, and it's nice to finally have it out there.
Definitely. I know that I used to play on Xbox all the time, and when I moved to PC and my friends were still on Xbox, I couldn't play with them. So now the competition's back on, so I'm looking forward to cracking on. We've also had an update on the driver stats. Me and Hayden looked at it quite in depth once we were able to see how they've been affected. Do you want to give us a little bit more insight on the changes on that side?
Yep, so as we always do with the F1 games, as of late we introduced a few driver stat updates throughout the life cycle of the game, and patch 1.09 will introduce another one, and this will include all changes up to and including Hungary.
We've also had the podium pass, which I know you guys have been working on quite a lot. Can you give us a bit more insight on the updates and inspirations that you've come up with, the new items?
Yep, so Series 2 will have also swapped over yesterday on the 24th. So this is the second series for F1 22, and yeah, we've had some inspiration from the Mid-Autumn Festival, which is a traditional celebration in China and other East Asian countries. So we have some items in the Podium Pass that are inspired by this festival. So we have a set that is around the fire dragon dances that are typically performed, which is a very cool set. And then we have another set of items which are inspired by some of the lanterns that you sometimes see.
Keep an eye out for that one. For those guys that haven't had a look, make sure you're leveled up, because you need some high levels to get some of the items. So really cool to hear about that one. You guys have teased a bit to the community. We didn't get to touch upon it with Matthew, but I'd love to see and hear what else you've got up your sleeves.
So we will have the F2 2022 season coming at some point in the future, so everybody will need to keep their eyes peeled for that. That will live alongside the F2 2021 content that we already have. Yeah, so this will include the new drivers and new team lineup as well. And as well as that, we have already released our first free track, being Portimao. That was available for everybody. And next up will be Shanghai Circuit, so China will be coming back. Having that swooping first turn is always very exciting and very unique. So,
following on from the patch notes that we've had recently, can you also give us some insight into the bug fixes we've had, Dom?
Absolutely, yeah. So there's been a bunch more bug fixes in the last patch, some of which will definitely be noticeable. So we had a number of people bring up that the automatic gearbox had an issue where it was sitting on the rev limiter for way too long before it was shifting up. So this has now been rectified, and that should be a big noticeable difference for those that use the automatic gearbox. Another couple of notable fixes, radio commands were sometimes being disabled after using a flashback. So this has now been fixed as well, so they should stay enabled for whenever you need them. And then finally, in offline modes, if you have the formation lap turned off, there was an issue where starting the race, you would have very cold tyres, and obviously it'd be nigh impossible to keep it straight if you're spinning up the rear. So this has also been addressed.
Okay, so one last question for me then is one that is asked quite regularly about how you guys actually design the tracks.
It's a massive effort by multiple teams and multiple studios as well to get a track into our game. But we start by gathering references. This comes in many forms. Photography, photogrammetry, so where we try and get 3D data out of a 2D photograph. We use satellite imagery, so once we gather all of this stuff, we can start to look at the actual spline for the track, as well as terrain boundaries and things like barriers and fencing and where they all need to be. So this is where the artists can start rubbing their hands together and getting stuck in. So once that's done, this will be divvied out between a bunch of different, very talented artists across different studios. While that's being done, we'll move on to the white boxing phase. So we'll kind of set out how the track is going to look, but at this point it won't be textured. This is kind of where we can start getting stuff in game and having it become a little bit testable. And then we'll further develop key areas as well. So for example, the Hard Rock Stadium on the Miami track. There was a lot of love that went into getting that look as realistic as possible. And then by this point, all the artists will have been hard at work, and those assets will come back to us in a more complete form. So we'll have to actually start placing these, making everything look very pretty. And then finally, it's a lot of polishing and optimization, and then bug fixing as well. So there's a lot of teams involved. It's cool when stuff starts appearing in game and we get to test it for the first time.
It's not as simple as, okay, someone just go in, design it, scan everything, and just put it in the game. That sounds like a massive undertaking that will take a very long time. Fantastic. Well, no, Sam, thank you so much for coming on and answering our questions and the community's questions. I really appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
That was a really cool interview there between you, Dirk, and Sam Thompson. Do you know what I really enjoyed picking out from that was that crossplay is now available. For years, I think you share this with me, that we've been having people ask us from Xbox, PlayStation, because we play on PC, can we play with you in open lobbies? We never can, but now that it's finally here, I'm so excited. Also, let us know what sort of fixes and issues that you have had with the game that you would like us to ask questions on. They have got a section as well that will be linked in the description where they report on the feedback that they are currently working on. So do always make sure you check that out before you throw us an issue that is already being worked on. Without any further ado though, let's get on to the next segment. Now on to the esports report. F1 Esports is still a little bit of a while away, but there are currently some very exciting leagues going on in the F1 games scene. And this is a great chance for us and anyone else who wants to get into and look at F1 Esports to get an idea of what the drivers are doing and who potentially could become the F1 Esports champion for 2022. Now there's a lot of talk about the drivers. One driver in particular, Jarno Opmeer. Of course, he's the two-time world champion, the current reigning champion, but he has said himself personally, he is a little bit on the back foot. The funny thing is though, in F1 Esports, when you say somebody's off the pace, at the end of the day, they're like, what, 2 tenths off? That just goes to show how close it is between drivers. But what do you think about Jarno Opmeer? Do you think that he is off the pace, or has he maybe, put the sandbags on and is going to come fresh out the blocks?
I think it's easy for anyone to say that it's sandbagging, but I don't think that's the case at all. As he said openly, he's got commitments with Mercedes outside of esports and league racing. Ultimately, he may not be getting as much time on the rig to practice for league racing as others, but you know who is shining at the moment? Lucas Blakely and Barry Borman. They are both absolutely doing bits at the moment.
But Barry Borman has always been a strong driver, but never been really able to fight at the front in the F1 esports scene. So could this be his year? Two very exciting drivers. One thing that those two guys are very good at, and it's very important for the F1 esports scene, is that they work as a team. Now in F1 esports, the team's championship is much more important than the drivers. Yeah. The drivers is just to boost up your ego. Everybody wants to win the driver's title, but the money is in the team's championship. Yeah. And that is what Marcel Kiefer and Frederick Rasmussen do really well at, and that is why they have won it the last couple of seasons. So that is the esports report. We will be returning for F1 Esports. We haven't got a date just yet, but when we do get that, you will find out here on this show.
And welcome to Team Radio. So this is the segment where we've actually looked at the questions that you've been asking on YouTube. We've gone to get some answers, and some are even in the patch notes. So we're going to go through those that you asked and see if we can answer them on here if you don't already know the answers. And the first question is from Skylar G. Now, they asked if the automatic gearbox problem that's being created on the controller is going to be fixed. I think that's more prominent on the consoles, but yes, Sam Thompson actually addressed that earlier on in the interview, and if that patch isn't already out, I know that they have definitely assigned that to be out in one of the upcoming patches. I think it might be even 1.09. So Skylar G, look out for that patch, and that is your problem solved right there.
We've got one here from Anonym. When are we getting crossplay? Well, crossplay, as we've already said, is now available. It should be available to you right now, where PC, EA Origin, Xbox, PlayStation, you can all play together right now. So if you want to go do that, get on the game right now, go and do it. And another one I've got here from Kyle S. AI straight line speed really needs to be fixed. As we have discussed already, this has been implemented in a recent patch which has gone out between the first episode we did and the second one. So if you are still struggling with the AI, you shouldn't be. Jump on the game, it should be completely fine now. And you can get back to some fun racing on the career mode. Now, as always, the comment section is open down below. So use that to your best ability and get in your feedback. We can then throw that over to EA and Codemasters, and we can get some more information on upcoming patches, certain things that are being fixed, or even some things that they have never even heard of before. This helps them to make the game as best as it possibly can be. On to challenge accepted now, and this is the part of the show where you can beat us. Last time out at the Hungarian Grand Prix, I let the side down, okay? My lap time may have been 2 seconds off the pace, but now we're gonna go and do exactly the same thing at Belgium and see if this time I can be a little bit closer to both Dirk and Tom. Before we get into that though, shout out to Blunty R9 for beating not just my time, which was easy by the way, but also Dirk's and Tom. So congratulations to you. Thank you very much for sending in your laps. It was a joy to see. Without any further ado, let's watch the hot laps. Here we go, a hot lap of the Belgian GP in the wet.
All right, here we go, boys. The start of a lap of Spa. Let's see what we can do.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a very wet Belgium Grand Prix lap here.
This is my third lap, and I'm going to beat both of them. I'm going to blow them out of the park here. It's a good turn one.
And try and get this car rotated. Trail braking helps a lot to get the car rotated.
One of the most famous corners everywhere in the entirety of the calendar.
And we're gaining time all the way down the Kemmel Straight. Good chance now. Let's think about what I'm having for dinner.
And keep it in fourth, but you can use fifth if you really want to.
Now, let's go ahead and break in time here. We just about look at the tires a tiny bit.
You want to keep it nice and tight through here. Don't want to let too much time go on the table.
Just manage the car as best as you can and not let it slide.
We do have the fastest first sector at the moment that I've ever done, so that's looking very, very good.
The real challenge, though, is you guys. Can you beat us? I mean, I'd love to beat the other two. That's just for pride.
Okay, now is where it gets really tricky for me. I should have really been in fifth gear there, but...
You brake as late as possible once the curb start or a tiny bit before.
Get your time in. Send it to us using the hashtag #TheRacingLine on social media.
That part of the section is so tricky to just keep your car stable.
You want to really watch out not going too wide, or you can lose the car very easily too.
On the exit through here, just easy on the power. Oh, big snap.
Third gear at the 50-meter marker board there. To the left, fourth gear on the exit, carrying as much speed as I possibly can.
We're going keep it hanging through here, but we almost lose the car actually on the throttle.
In towards the bus stop chicane. On the brakes. Where's the apex? I can't see it. It's too wet.
Trying not to lose rear end, crossing the line, and so...
Very wide, and we almost lose the car actually, but we keep it hanging. Oh my goodness.
Maybe we have bottled it. We're going to come to the line now, and it's going to be...
It's going to be a P...
159.3. Nothing amazing.
A 158.5. Do you know what?
One, obviously, with a 159.0.
We'll take that. We'll take that. Those are the hot laps then from the three of us. If you feel like you can beat all of us, make sure you send your lap in on social media using the hashtag #TheRacingLine. But that is it for today's show. If you want to stay up to date with the Racing Line and the F1 22 game, make sure you follow at Formula 1 Game on social media and also subscribe to this channel for more of this show. From me and Dirk, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.